In this video, I go through and show you how I personally have been structuring my plumbing quotes to win those bids. Hey, welcome to the Plumbing Gurus. My name is Karsten. On this channel, we strive to save you money and keep you informed on all the proper plumbing practices. If you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and let's jump into this video. Alright, so I've done a couple mock-ups here. These are actual jobs that I have quoted and won the bids on. So I have two different ones I've done here. I have a full house reno and a new house. So this one I believe is my new house. So yes, this is my new house. It was a brand new house that was being built for purposes of saving people's identities. This is a whole different account I've done. The previous video I kind of went through and told you that I use Joist and briefly went through on how to use it. Again, it is free, but if you wanted to get a logo, you got to pay for that. If you want to do certain things, you got to pay for it. I highly recommend paying for it. If you are a plumbing contractor, the $120 a year is worth every penny. That's nothing in the big scheme of things. I'll go into the editing portion here. So this is a new house. So first I filled out the client's information. This is Doug Smith. Generally, this would be like a builder actually. So I'd say it's like whatever builder you're doing it for, blah, 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 construction or developments, whatever it is, Doug Smith Developments, let's call it that. That's his company name. So then his email address is dsmith@gmail.com. Again, these are just made up names and addresses. 1234 Fake Street, Southwest, not a real address. Calgary, Alberta, that's just where I'm from. You can put in a postal code if you want to. I don't normally do that. And then once you have a bunch of clients already, the nice thing about the Joist app is you can go through and just click on the client and it automatically fills out all this information. You've already done it once. You only got to do it once. It's saved in that information. So you hit add, puts in all that information in this box here. We're on estimate number 2. The date is here. PO number, you can do those. I don't personally, I probably should, but I don't. I'm just a small company. It's just me by myself. So I know how to keep track of things. I don't have a bunch of employees worrying PO numbers and stuff like that. This video is just for purposes of how I personally fill out my quotes. I am going to do a video on how to actually like take a blueprint, physically go through the blueprints and do my process, how I structure a quote. I went from taking about 8 hours to do like a big, huge house that's worth like $70,000 job. It used to take me 8 hours because I would like just go through and do all this like kind of useless information. I've got things down to a pretty good T on how I do it. I can do one in about an hour to 2 hours max now, sometimes even less, because I have all this stuff already kind of like written out. So I actually go back to like a previous one. I just copy paste it and then just like reword a bunch of stuff depending on what's in there. So let's go through this one here. I always do plumbing and gas together because they're kind of the same, and then I'll do a hydronic heating one. If there's hydronic heating in the job, that'll be a whole separate one, but for this video purposes, we're just going to do plumbing and gas. I'll always put the gas line at the top, so then I put gas line and fill it out, and then I put will be sized accordingly due to BTU load and furthest fixture from the meter. That's how we size our gas lines. Not sure how you do yours or not, but that's how we do it here. And then I just write down what's in there. So you want to have as much detail as possible. There's probably better ways of doing this. Please let me know after you've watched the video if you are a plumbing contractor and you have a better scenario. I'd love to hear your input. You can join our Facebook group at the Plumbing Gurus. That's our Facebook group. We'd love to get any kind of feedback or information. But if you're fairly new to this, I know 7 years ago when I started my business, there's nobody doing this kind of stuff, giving away this kind of information. I want to help you guys succeed to win these bids, because like sometimes maybe you lose the job just because you didn't fill out your quote properly. Like the pricing might be fine, but maybe you just look unprofessional and there's not enough information there and you lost the job because of that. Having more information is ideal for the client. So if your builder is like going through and comparing, say they have 3 different quotes, well, yours has all this information and so much specifics on what you're going to be doing, supplying. You can even go as far as like saying you're not using Cellcore, you're using ABS, what kind of material you're using, all that kind of like what kind of PEX, if you're using Uponor. You want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. So the more information you have in there, they can compare to the other quotes. And if you have all that information, if you've gone through and like nitpicked everything and specifically said all these special things, and they go to the other guy and he's just like says like, I'm going to install your plumbing, blah 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 blah, they're going to probably pick you. And you might be $1,000 more, but because you went through and put all that extra detail and time, they're going to expect that out of your work too. Then after I do, so I got my gas line, you got 2 furnaces, 1 boiler, 2 stoves, barbecue, fireplace outside will require underground gas line. So you want to kind of like, again, put the information in there. If there's some information that you feel needs to be there, put it in there. So then we get into drains, and I just say all drains will be sized according to code and ran at a minimum drainage grade of 1/4 inch per foot. So in this house, there's a storm sump and a pump in the basement. Some houses we do the storm is coming from the city, and then a floor drain in the mechanical room. It's kind of a code, but we just put it in. We just make sure, again, more detail the better. Condensate drains for furnaces and boiler. So we always like to run a condensate drain off of the floor drain from the P-trap so you don't have condensate pipes running across the mechanical room floor. Very good thing to do, and just make sure you put it in there so they know you're doing it. Maybe the other guys aren't offering that. 3-inch drain to the garage for the garage drain. So that's information. If there's a garage drain, you got to make sure you're paying attention to the blueprint specs, things like that. Make sure you're always going through and paying attention to those little details. And then we got one powder room on the main floor, one kitchen sink on the main floor, one pantry sink on the main floor, master bedroom, bathrooms, and upper floors, 5-piece bathroom. Just kind of list through, like, you don't need to, like, 5-piece means there's a toilet, 2 sinks, a shower, and a tub kind of thing. One common bathroom on the upper floor, 4-piece. Laundry room on the upper floor, run indirect drain back to the mechanical room. Again, these are all little things. If they aren't things that you have to do, this is just a quote that I've done. These are all specific to my codes and area. Just giving you an idea of how you can structure your quotes to make it look as professional as possible. And then we get into water lines. I usually like to run a 1-inch line through the basement, like on a big house. These are big houses that we're doing, so we like to run a 1-inch line and then branch off and run 3/4 to like each bathroom. Or sometimes I'll do like a semi-home run and run 3/4 inch hot and cold to each bathroom, and then have little 1/2-inch branches there. The only problem with doing home run and semi-home run that I don't like is a lot of these big houses like to have recirc lines. It's hard to recirc. You can't really recirc a home run system. The only good thing about home run is like you have no fittings, then you're waiting forever for hot water. So it depends on the client. Most of these high-end clients want to have like instant hot water kind of thing. So I always run 1 inch through the basement, and then I just branch off 3/4 everywhere. And then either I'll recirc that 1-inch main, or generally I'll just run the recirc line up to the master shower, and then the master is getting instant hot water. And for me personally, I think the people who own the house are the ones that should have the recirc, so they get the instant hot water. The kids, you can run separate recirc lines to there if they want to request it, but generally I only run 1 to the master. Unless it's like a really big house, then we might run 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. But then we do that for better flow purposes. Run 3/4 inch to bathroom groups off the 1-inch. Frost-free hose bibs ran back to the mechanical room, and we always like to put I probably should put this in there, but we always like to put we always put a valve and a drain valve in there. Instead of just like one of those stop and drains, we like to put a valve and then a drain above it so you can properly drain it. I realize frost frees don't need to be drained, but I always like to drain them. We like to tell people to turn them off and drain them in the winter, especially when we get to like the -30°C where we're at. And then run hot recirc lines. We talked about that. And now with a new energy code that we have to insulate all hot lines as per energy code for recirc lines. So as soon as you install a recirc pump or recirc lines, we have to go through and insulate all of the hot lines. Kind of a pain, but it's just the way it is. It's part of code now. Rough in for soft water. Supply and install softener. So again, just more detail you can as much as possible. Rough in for irrigation. Water line to each fridge. If they got more than one fridge, we always like to run water lines to fridges no matter what, whether or not they ask for it. I just do it anyways. Again, it's one of those things that can help you win a bid. You've already put it in there. There's no questions asked when you're going to do it. It's like, oh, did you include that in your price? Well, yeah, it's right there. We always include it. And as for finishing, I don't normally go into a ton of detail. I probably should, but finishing, I just say install all plumbing fixtures, test backflow for irrigation, test for hot and colds, things like that. Pretty standard, just installing the fixtures. Probably it wouldn't hurt to put in a little more detail. Again, this is all work in progress for me. I've been doing this on my own for 7 years. I'm constantly trying to do this better. I ask my contractors what they think of my quotes and how it's laid out. I've never been kind of told otherwise. I have been told to put more information. That's why I've started doing that, because in the past I wouldn't put a ton of information or detail, so then they would request for a little more detail so they would know exactly what they're getting out of the job, so they compare to the other quotes. And then down here you can do the show client signature and my signature. And then there's the notes for client. So this is a good one where you can put any kind of like disclaimers. So I like to say like price does not include any plumbing fixtures. So if they do want pricing on plumbing fixtures, I always do that separately in like a different format. We can go through that later. Price does not include any concrete coring. You want to make sure you want to put as much detail as possible into the things that aren't included. When the argument comes down the road, you can at least say, look at my quote. No, it's not included. If you want me to provide that, I can at a cost. And then on the bigger jobs, this is something I actually learned from one of my contractors. They specifically said to do something like this: $4,500 labor allowance for finishing. If fixtures are out of the ordinary and cause time to go over, additional costs may be added. You could word this better. I am no script writer. I'm actually terrible at doing this kind of things, but this is kind of as detailed as I can personally get. But essentially what it's saying is if there's a bunch of weird fixtures, like you get into like the Italian fixtures and things like that that are just taking forever, you keep track of your time at final stage. If you go over $4,500 worth of labor, you're going to charge them more, and then you've explained that in the quote. But generally try not to charge people more, because then that's how you just lose the next job. You want to make sure you're quoting properly. You just have it in there just for contingencies. And then any changes to complete work will be subject to extra charges. So if there's any changes, you're going to be charging them extra money. You want to make that clear to them. Any added or changes to original blueprints. So if like when the time comes, the blueprints are just like completely different than the ones you quoted on, like say a year ago. Some of these jobs take a year before I get them. I don't ever charge extra, even if they do change something. It's not like it's going to like be detrimental to the amount of time that it takes to plumb in the house. But it's just nice to have it there. And then price does not include digging a trench for underground gas line. If they want to dig it themselves, they can. If they want me to dig it, I'm going to charge them for things like that. You just want to be, again, make sure that you have as much detail as possible in here. If there are any issues or changes, you can refer back to the quote, and that is that. So that is the full house. We'll save that. We're going to jump over to a full renovation. So this is like a gut renovation. This is one that I have quoted in the past. This is actually a job that I quoted. It was a big job. It was worth $22,350. We had GST on there. I just write plumbing reno. You could do like full house reno, full house plumbing reno, however you want to structure this. I'll kind of show you what the quote looks like, and they'll go through it. So we have the client's information here. It's all fake, whatever. Your estimate number is 3, the date, your business tax, GST number. That's just one I made up. This is all your company information, your company logo. I highly recommend paying for it and putting your logo in there. This would not look very good. You want to put your own personal logo in there. And then you have your line items. You got a plumbing reno for $22,350. And then it has all the information filled out on what you are going to do, what you're going to provide for that $22,350. Then you got some extra line items because it's a renovation, some camera work, scope the main drain, permits, $500 for plumbing and gas permits. And then you got a garage unit heater. This was like an extra line item that they just requested. They weren't sure if they were going to go with it. So we did it as a separate line item from the rest of the scope of the work. They did end up doing the garage heater because, you know, they've realized it was affordable. So they went with a garage unit heater, is install garage unit heater. Biggest thing is like just fill out the information, like I said, as much detail as possible, and then have the price there. Don't break down material and like don't sell things as parts and pieces. Sell them the job as a whole, but break it down as much detail as you possibly can. Some clients are going to want to have different line items and different options for things. Certain things like a softener, like if you want to just break things down into different line items, but certain things are just like a part of the scope of work. You got to run the drainage, you got to do the water lines, things like that. All the little extras you can just do as line items. The nice thing about Joist is you just keep adding line items. These are all little line items that you can do. And again, I go through this, how I kind of scripted or wrote out my quote here. So we got demo, remove all drains and vents above the concrete, remove all existing water lines in the house, break concrete to access basement drains and water line, remove all plumbing fixtures, keep fixtures requested by clients, wrap them and fix them. So like this job specifically, they wanted to keep some fixtures, so we just took them out, wrapped them up real nice and put them aside into a storage area. So that's demo. If you do want to be specific and ask questions on this is a good way to like structure your quotes. And then like if you have any questions for the builder or the client or whoever you're doing for, what demo am I doing? Are you doing the demo? Am I doing the demo? Am I taking out the copper? Do I get to keep the copper? Are you keeping the copper because it's worth money? Who's breaking the concrete? Who's patching the concrete? These are all like major questions you need to be asking so that you can properly price the job and actually be comparing apples to apples if you are quoting against another company. The ideal situation is you're just working for existing contractors and clients that just want to use you, but you're still putting in lots of detail and quality work because they know you're going to do it. Then we go down to drainage, run all new ABS drainage above ground according to the new construction plan. So they've ripped the house apart, they're redoing the plan, they've moved the bathroom over here, they've added a laundry room upstairs or whatever, and then we're tying the drains under concrete to accommodate new plans. Cap off, so that was like, I think they did redid the whole basement and they moved the bathroom. The whole mechanical room actually got moved in this one. Cap off the demolished bathroom in the basement, relocate the existing bathroom in the basement according to new construction plan. This Install 3-inch floor drain and sink in the mechanical room. Provide condensate drains for the furnace. Do not have pipes running across the concrete. So it's a good thing to explain to them why you're running a condensate drain. Water lines. Relocate the main water line to the new mechanical room location. Water will need to be shut off by the city, and an access panel in the floor will be required by the corporation coupling underground. Information that you want to put in there so that when you do all these things, there's no complications down the road, like I've already said. I'll keep repeating myself on that because it's very important. Run all new hot and cold water lines to all plumbing fixtures, rough-ins for soft water, install 3 new hose bibs, run back to the mechanical room with proper shutoffs and drains. Always ask how many hose bibs they want. These are all questions you want to be asking because you don't want to just assume. Usually there's only 2, but this client wanted 3, so these are just questions you always want to be asking. Have like a list of questions for your clients and your builders for when you do new construction jobs. You send them an email, you fire it off, or a text, or however you communicate with them. You ask them as many questions as you possibly can. It looks good on you. They want to answer those questions because they want you to have as much detail in there as possible. Detail, detail, detail. Hot water tank. Provide and install a 75-gallon power direct vent hot water tank. Vent to the closest available spot to outdoors. Must meet codes. Tub and showers. Install bathtub and showers and basement bathroom. Install shower and master. So just breaking down everything as much as possible, as much detail as you can see here. Tie into the existing gas line. Relocate the furnaces. Tie in the hot water tank, fireplace, more fireplaces. Run half-inch flexible gas line, and then finishing. Install your plumbing fixtures. Again, we're just going through here and explaining to them what it is exactly that you're doing. You could definitely go into more detail, but I think that this is more than enough. I have yet to have somebody tell me they need more detail from doing this type of thing. If it's not broken, don't fix it. I haven't had any issues. This is what I do, and it's been working great. Winning lots of bids by doing this kind of thing. And again, you want to make sure you have all of your notes for the client. Price does not include patching of the concrete. They didn't want me to patch it, so I put it in there, asked them specifically. Prices according to all drains removed above ground. Proper inspection of pipes will be made on site when everything. So in this situation, they wanted to potentially keep some of the pipes to save some cost, but it didn't make sense because everything was just moving around. So I just made a judgment call as I kind of stated in here. Judgment call will be made at the point of the drains. Vents can be kept. I didn't keep any drains. I pretty much ripped everything out because it had to be, and it's just nicer to have the new stuff, especially with a big renovation like that. Price does not include concrete coring. APN is not responsible for storing any reused fixtures. APN is my actual company name. It's not the Plumbing Gurus. If there are any issues with the reused fixtures, extra charges may be applied because when you pull out a fixture and it sits there for 6 months to a year and you go to reinstall it, everything's dried up, and then you go to install and the cartridges are leaking. You got to find new cartridges. I try to explain this to people that it's not always necessarily cheaper and easier to keep the old fixtures unless they're only like a few years old. But if a fixture is 10 to 15 years old, for that $300 or $400, just please replace the fixture. You probably understand. Price according to the gas line is proper size BTU load for the house. If gas line needs to be changed, any extra cost may apply. So just little things like this. There's some unknowns when it comes to renovations. It's very difficult to price a renovation that's like not gutted and you just come in and it's like you're kind of just playing a guessing game. But after doing enough of them, if you're doing enough of these renovations, you start to just realize how everything's kind of ran, but you never know how another plumber ran their stuff. So you don't know if things are just being done improperly and you're just gutting a bunch of stuff that you didn't normally think you had to. You want to make them aware that extra charges can apply if there's any issues down the road. Price does not include a water softener. I think we roughed in for water softener, but I made sure to be clear that it doesn't include the actual water softener. So if they want to add a water softener, we can go down that road in the future. Essentially, this is how I structure all of my quotes and my estimates and then my invoices. On this, it's awesome. You can generate it right to an invoice if you want to. I don't recommend doing it. I just did it. I thought it would ask me to be okay. I usually like to duplicate it before I generate it because once you generate it, it's gone out of your estimates and you no longer have it. It's now just in your invoices. So it doesn't matter for me here because it's just a mock-up. But if you are going to generate an invoice from an estimate, you want to duplicate it, except on the free version. Oh yeah, duplicate. So you duplicate it and then save it, and then you can generate it as an invoice. And then now you have it's still sitting in your estimates and now in your invoices. So then when you go to invoice them, let's say you've just done all this work, like all the rough-in stuff, or maybe you're just invoicing them progress payments kind of thing. Like, you do a week's worth of work and you invoice them. This is what you want to kind of keep track. And I'm actually going to be making another video. I have a spreadsheet that I want to show you guys on how I actually structure all my quotes before I start filling it out and how I actually price things. That'll be a future video for you. And then you can refer back to that. So it's like I break it down down into all the different sections like groundworks, drainage, water lines, tubs, and then I can invoice accordingly. I'm not going to get into it too deeply, but I will be doing that video. And again, if you guys have any questions, I think that's pretty much it. I hope this helps a little bit. Please let me know if you have any questions at all. Join our Facebook group, The Plumbing Gurus. You can also just comment in the comments below and ask any kind of questions. If this is helpful and you want more of this type of information, please let me know. I love doing these kind of videos. I'm here to kind of share my knowledge. I'm not saying I've been doing this for 20, 30 years. It's only been 7 on my own. Been plumbing for a long time. But I do know when I first started, nobody was sharing this kind of information. You couldn't even really buy it. I would have paid money for it, but nobody's out there sharing this kind of stuff. So I just want to be able to help you guys. Again, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.